So I'm Melody Clark. I'm a Lincolnshire-based poet and artist. And from my cavern deep in the Lincolnshire wolds, I create work that is macabre and unusual, often blending it with themes of womanhood and intimacy. Basically, I write a lot about fannies and the devil. And as a creative woman, I'm incredibly inspired by the dark and the devilish, the strange and the surreal. And I have so many icons that have made some of the most bizarre and brilliant work you will ever encounter. Today, I'd like to share with you a series of poems entitled Storyteller Sirens. These are the women that have carved sculptures within the increasingly odd landscape of my brain. These women are 20th century artists and storytellers. Some you may have heard of, while others are in dire need of more recognition for their passion, their talents, and their contribution to the arts. So, at the moment, during the past few years, we've seen a lot of discussion regarding sexism in the film industry. From equal pay through to the portrayal and representation of women on screen. It feels as if we're only just starting to see multi-layered, multifaceted, complicated women in film, despite the industry being over a century old. However, during the golden age of Hollywood in the 1930s, women and women's stories were the center of film. Actresses such as Joan Crawford, Greta Garbo, and Mae West embodied women that were powerful, arresting, assertive, and confident. Films of this era even explored controversial topics, such as abortion, affairs, and queer sexuality. Sadly, this era of Hollywood came to an end in 1934 when the Hays Code was introduced, censoring nudity, immorality, and sexuality on screen. I'd like to begin with a poem that pays tribute to these excellent women and the enthralling roles they held on screen. This is called Medusa's Vipers in Marcel Waves. Enter frame the Femme Fatales, gown made of silk that sweeps the floor, leaving a trail of devastation. A Cupid's bow that points to heavens, to almond eyes with coal so sharp she'd send you straight to hell. Entrapped in talking pictures, trading meals for movie theatres. Criminals with cropped curls, Medusa's vipers in Marcel Waves. Deadly dialogue delivered through elegant elocution. Joan Crawford's crooked women, divorcees and dastardly deeds, complicated, conflicted, in control, knocking back whiskey and multiple lovers. Worlds in which strangers can kiss and goddesses kill with gunfire. Don't ever let a man make a sucker out of you, Claudette Colbert commands fellow women. Mae West declares that she's no angel. Immoral Marlena turns heads in perilous pre-code pictures. The darker shades of black and white, setting tone with exposure and contrast, filling the screens and every single seat. So we journey now through time and space to another part of media history. This next poem is about none other than Delia Derbyshire. Delia Derbyshire worked during the 1960s as part of the BBC's Radiophonic Workshop, a studio tasked with creating atmospheric soundscapes and television theme tunes for television and radio. They used laborious, intricate methods of analog technology long before synthesizers and sampling. And years before electronic music even started to chart, Delia was pioneering some of the most otherworldly, insane-sounding music. Delia's most famous piece was the theme tune for science fiction game changer Doctor Who. While the score was written by Ron Grainer, Derbyshire arranged and realized one of the most iconic and memorable noises of the 20th century. Due to the BBC's strict regulation following the BBC Radiophonic Workshop's anonymity, Derbyshire wasn't credited on screen for her work until the 50th anniversary episode of Doctor Who in 2013, 12 years after her death. For Delia, this is radiophonic royalty. Follow the trail of tape reels streaming down the darkened corridors, the broadcast that fills the building, sound that smacks as you open the door. Behold, radiophonic royalty, the sculptress of sound with a second sight for symphonies, Delia Derbyshire in the dead of night. Orchestrating television tunes, the BBC secret of sound design, the avant-garde of audio, laborious, ludicrous, and lavish. She calculates hypnotic soundscapes, electronic auras, ghostly glitches. She tortures cassette tapes, she castrates and cuts, manipulating meticulous melodies. The Delian mode operating on algorithms and precision, musician and mathematician, cosmic creation and composition, the clockwork key in her back. Spinning out sounds until the small hours, she transmits signals through the galaxy. Jolting journeys through time and space like dystopian folk songs chanted by robots and extraterrestrial tenors. Mechanical hymns for an industrial overlord, amplified sirens of Armageddon. The mating calls of piano strings, severed and split, looped and interlocked, thrust inwards and outwards beyond recognition. An orgy of music and machine. Gestating an electric storm, her gut filled with madness and Merlot, fulfilling polyphonic prophecy and birthing her intergalactic eulogy. Thank you. So from one musician to another, this next artist is incredibly well known and an iconic role of music in the 20th century. She's well known and loved for her theatricality, not just in her onstage performance and persona, but within her lyricism and songwriting, many of it exploring mythology and ghosts, the supernatural and the spiritual. Her own mythology is only increased by her rare public appearances and reclusive personality. Not only has this woman inspired countless musicians and songwriters, but any young girl that would much prefer to be the witch than the princess. Here she comes. She's here again, coming at you through the trees, with her piano premonitions and the shrieking face of a silent movie star. She's wacky, she's wild, she's really bloody weird. Look out, because here comes Kate Bush. Her limbs jolt like a marionette. Her voice cackles through the branches. They say she's a witch, they call her babushka. Oh, how she moves you. She draws ever closer, Kate Bush. You're running up that hill, but you'll never outrun her. Her hounds of love, they snap at your ankles. Her wide eyes have captured your image in song. You're in awe, but she's armed with her army of dreamers. Thunder in your heart for Kate Bush. Ethereal entities call out your name. She's gaining on you. She floats through the moors, a spooky and strange phenomenon in her ruby red gown, red shoes, and 2 steps on the water. Pretty, possessed Kate Bush. This woman's work bewitches the beat of your pulse, and you're terrified, yet tapping your feet to the tune of her siren song. You're just in reach. Your feet pound the soil. It's me, I've come home, screams Kate Bush. The brush of her hair tickles your neck. You feel arms surrounding you. Red lips at your earlobe, she sings, let me have it. Let me grab your soul away. You want to feel how it feels, Kate Bush. Your little heart, it beats so fast, over the lights and under the moon, in the sensual world of Kate's eyes. Wuthering in the witch's grasp, you're so cold. Bad dreams in the night. You wake up crying, Kate Bush! Thank you. So while Kate Bush is the most iconic and most praised for her work, this next artist is incredibly lesser known and deserves a lot more recognition. Griot Lankton was a doll maker and sculptor in the 1980s East Village art scene in New York. Her dolls are certainly something. Her dolls are figures of trauma, hedonism, addiction, and high glamour. Griot herself was a transgender woman, and while there are claims that the choice to transition were not of her own making, many of her dolls examine gender, both in the stark exposure of genitalia and body parts and the extremities to which the female body can be pushed. Her work is important not only due to its honesty and uncomfortable feeling, but in the playful, fun garishness the dolls have, each with their own personality, their own flaws, and their own distinctive beauty. This is She Makes Dolls. Griot Lankton makes dolls. East Village extravagant dolls. Beautifully crafted supermodels of suffering, with lipstick nipples and cigarette butts. Enormous dolls, emaciated dolls, dolls with rolls and shrinking rib cages, dolls of starvation and gluttony, glamorously grotty, dolls of putrid prettiness, dolls of debauchery, dolls of tragedy. Dress-up anorexia dolls, dolls of dead women, Candy Darling and Divine, Jackie Kennedy, Judy Garland, immortalized in mannequin glory. A salon of sumptuous sexuality and pin-up puppetry. Family portraits of drag queen dolls, freakishly fun circus dolls, dolls of decadent addiction, dolls of skeletal sin. Grotesque and gangly dolls of female autonomy. Dolls wearing pearls against sharp collarbones, dolls bursting out of silk nightgowns, low-brow, high-fashion, high-cheekbone dolls, embellished with elaborate trauma, flamboyantly flawed and luxuriously lewd. Dolls that cross a catwalk of catastrophe, standing tall in splendor. Dolls with protruding, posable pouts, dolls with heart-shaped cavities. Weird and wayward darling dolls, sharing bad habits and doll DNA, reclining in armchairs, vices in hand, at home with gorgeous Griot. Thank you. What I admire and respect the most about Griot Lankton's work is the vulnerability. It may be a drag-like, tongue-in-cheek approach, but there is an honesty to these manifestations of pain and suffering. The therapy of the arts lies not only in the creating, but in the experiencing. Whether you regard yourself as an art lover or not, we all want to feel something through entertainment, be it cinema, through to music, through to art galleries. And I feel it is vital that we are all able to access these things for our own mental health, if not anything else. I'd like to close with a more personal poem about my relationship with art. And I would ask you all to support galleries and exhibitions where possible and just enjoy art, music, film, poetry, wherever you can, hopefully today. So this last poem is called Gallery. I step in from the rain with a squelch in my shoe and a grouchy drip from my clothes. The vertebrae of my umbrella has surrendered. Spokes broken, snapped into submission. The rocks in my pockets are blunt, heavy boulders pulling me through the floorboards. I leave mud on the doormat and make my way inside. The gallery girl beckons from her extravagant golden frame, Rubenesque, restful and resplendent, heavenly, hearty and happy. To her left is a pastel rendition of pears and apples and peaches, ripe and fresh and inviting despite their long past expiry date. To her right are boats in the harbour, the bright, busy market towns, figures so tiny, merely a brushstroke, an unrecognisable bliss. From a dark frame in the corner, a man screams in red and yellow, tormented, tired, hairless and horrid, visually violently hellish. My weary, wet feet step towards solidarity. With clumps of hair in my hands, I reach out towards his screaming. In this hallowed, expressive howl, there is a bizarre beauty, the extremity of existence in paint for all to see. Vivid vulnerability, cathartic release in creation, expressionist exhibition. a soul laid bare in lurid colour, a beloved masterpiece, the madness in art that makes us feel more at ease and less alone. Sharing traumatized togetherness, I forget the dread and drip. The rocks in my pockets are smooth, kaleidoscopic marbles, rooting me to the earth and dry land. I step out into the sun. Thank you ever so much.